So we are now streaming live on Facebook.
All right. Okay. Hello, Facebook world.
We are.
Great, great.
All the way over in, you're in the
Philippines,
aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah. Far east on the other side of the world.
And we've got all the technology going this time. So, welcome, Billy.
Yeah, thanks, Georgie.
Thank you very much for joining us. And I know
not a problem.
We sort of kept loosely involved. I know you contacted me, it was 3 years ago, wasn't it, that we initially met?
Yeah, it was 2017. It was about 3 years ago.
It was, yes. Yeah, right at the end. So do you want to just tell us, usually what happens is if you tell us a little bit about your story, people can start asking questions. But first of all, just to say hello to everybody, thanks for joining us. And we will start chatting for 15-20 minutes because then that gives things for other people to then want to start finding out more about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's really great to, to be part of this process, and yeah, it's really great to be here. You asked me to think about my story. A lot of it is just kind of forgotten. Not that it's been suppressed or anything, but I've just completely moved on from it. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of recovery is you just get on with your life. So let me think about this.
You don't think about trying to stay healthy. You don't think about trying, but I would suggest you probably learned the lessons. You have more of an understanding of self-care now as well. And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the viewers, it all started off with a pain issue that gradually turned into a chronic pain issue. And I was just driven to find answers. It became my obsession. I was living in China at the time. So I had the benefit of seeking like TCM doctors, traditional Chinese medicine. I tried that. I tried acupuncture. I tried physiotherapy. I went to a chiropractor at one point. I went to an osteopathic doctor. It just became my obsession, and it kept getting progressively worse. And
so tell us what was the pain and how did it start?
Oh, sure. It's just good old arm pain. Started off in my left arm, and it gradually just radiated down the whole arm. And it was at a point, it was pretty bad. Like I couldn't sit in a chair like this and rest my arm on an armrest without it becoming extremely painful. Couldn't hug my wife without it, or she was my girlfriend at the time, without it bringing on a lot of pain. It really shut me down because I was quite active and athletic before it happened, and it just kind of came gradually. And in a lot of ways, it just kind of came out of nowhere. And I was trying to figure out, what is the cause of this? And I saw, I first saw a general practitioner, and then what do you call the doctors who specialize in bones again? I can't remember.
Orthopedic?
Exactly, an orthopedic doctor. I did the whole works. I did a neck X-ray, MRI, a shoulder X-ray, MRI, all of it. And nothing too significant other than the, bulging discs, this and that. And one thing that was really funny was at one point, one doctor took a look at my X-ray and he said, "Oh, you have bulging discs. You shouldn't walk too far." looking back now, I just laugh. Yeah, he said, "Oh, this means you shouldn't walk for a prolonged period of time."
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and it gets in your head.
Yes.
It all of the diagnosis, all got in my head, definitely.
And I know you were told also that you had a tear in your rotator cuff.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So not to do sport and.
No, it was not related to any sort of acute injury. And I remember you sent me that report about the basketball players who all have degeneration in their knees, but they're asymptomatic.
Well, there are different studies, but one of them, the basketball players, is the 40% of them have degeneration in their shoulders, but without pain, playing at an elite level.
Yeah.
So at that time, were you aware that you were anxious, that you were suffering from anxiety, or were you not? Was it?
I think that event, the event with my arm, kind of made me realize that I was also suffering from a lot of underlying anxiety.
Right.
Yeah, it had been there for a few years prior, especially, like I told you, when I stopped drinking. So before this, chronic pain issue, I had quit heavy drinking a few years earlier. And I think that's kind of when all the anxiety started for me.
Right. So you were finding that alcohol was actually helping self-soothe and
yeah, definitely.
And then when that stopped, then your body had to find another way.
Yep, definitely.
So clearly you are American, or you sound American.
Technically, I'm half Filipino and half American.
Yeah,
I
you
like
sound
to
American
represent.
and you're in the Philippines.
Yeah, of course,
so
of course.
Tell everybody like the story.
Well, yeah, I was actually born here. I've never lived here until now. I grew up in the U.S., Clear Lake, Texas, and I also grew up in China. So I have a quite international background. Born in the Philippines, grew up in the U.S., also grew up in China, finished high school in China, went back to the U.S. for uni, as you guys call it, and then back to China for to start my working career. And that, when we were doing, I was in China at the time. I met my lovely wife. She is from Taiwan. And we left China last year. I had been living there for 9 years. So kind of all over the place. And now I'm in the Philippines. Soon to join my wife in Taiwan. After COVID. Yeah, after COVID settled. Yes, with our cat. We can't travel right now because of all the travel restrictions. There's no pet transport right now. So
yeah. So how old are you now, by the way, Billy?
33. I turned 34 on the 21st. So soon to be 34.
Yeah. So I know you say you moved over to China when you were 16, I believe. So I remember you saying that was a really challenging time for you, not surprisingly.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it was. It was literally the best of times, the worst of times. That's kind of when a lot of my binge drinking started. Well, yeah, when I was 16, when I moved to China. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I think maybe consciously it sounded like you were enjoying the thrill and the change, but unconsciously quite a big change.
Definitely.
And of course, when we went through the assessment, you ticked all the boxes with the personality traits, the stress-inducing personality traits, or TMS personality, as Dr. Sano calls it.
Yep.
Overly perfectionistic, conscientious, over analytical.
Definitely. Yeah, all that good stuff.
Which then doesn't help with the anxiety as well. So when we talk about TMS, mind-body conditions, we focus on three main underlying causes of symptoms. As you've just mentioned, the personality traits that cause and learned behaviours, things that cause us a lot of stress. But often we learn those in childhood as a way of coping with our environment, our experiences. And also current stress. So, for example, you moving over to China from America, and all the normal but quite challenging things like moving back to America and going to college and coming back again and starting new jobs, all these challenging, let alone anything else that we might experience. Yeah. And then, of course, adverse childhood experiences or stress in childhood. So which do you feel are relevant primarily for you?
Georgie, I think honestly it was kind of a combination of everything. And I remember, in my quest to find answers, what was the exact reason for the cause of all of this, chronic pain. And I would have to say it was honestly just a combination of everything that kind of culminated and finally just needed to, let itself out. I can't say definitively that it was any one thing. I think it was just a combination of everything in my case. Yeah.
I'm sure it is.
A lot of people, yeah,
a lot of people are searching for an answer and trying to find that one thing. And often it can be a really small trigger, but a lot of stuff from the past that we've just sort of coped with. And then at some point that trigger results in a manifestation of symptoms. So Definitely. You came to see me at the end of November. We started working together then, and I know at that time you were pretty anxious at that point. In fact, just tell everybody the story you told me about when you looked back and you remember being in a taxi and having pain, and you were with your friend.
Oh yeah. I just look back now at some of the way I was, and I just laugh. It's just hilarious. At one point, I was in a taxi with a friend of mine, and this was in Beijing, in China, and we were going out somewhere to the mall or something to get a meal. And I said, Philip, stop the cab. I need to get out immediately. I need to get out, and I made him stop the taxi. I got out, and I literally I got in another taxi and drove to the International Hospital, Beijing United. I was pacing back and forth outside of that hospital thinking, do I need to go in? Am I having, some kind of heart-related issue? Yeah, looking back now, my anxiety was really bad at certain points. I mean, I went to the ER twice thinking I was having cardiac events, and they just kind of looked at me, scratched their head. Blood pressure, everything was normal, and they're like, "This is just anxiety." And at the time, I was like, "This is anxiety, but it's so real."
Yeah, it's real.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember too that one, what was it? Yeah, 3 Christmases ago, I couldn't even get on a plane to fly here to see my parents for Christmas. I was in China, and I was meant to be here. I couldn't even get on a plane.
Yeah, I remember that because we were working together at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy looking back now.
Yeah,
it's crazy because I mean, my wife and I just went to Europe last September, about a year ago for our honeymoon, and loved it. I look back and it's just unbelievable where I was and where I am now. I mean, I stopped exercising, stopped doing heavy exercise. My life just completely shut down. Became really reclusive, and like I just told you before we got on, now I'm socially drinking again. I'm traveling. I'm doing intense exercise. I would be playing basketball, but because of COVID, can't play. I'm not going to wear the mask and go play. No thanks.
Yeah.
So it's been a journey.
Yeah, definitely. And I do remember you being probably one of the most anxious people I have started working with when we started working together. Lots of messaging and inquiries and yes but and constantly in the first part, certainly the first half of working together, constantly still searching for an answer, trying to find an answer, trying really hard and being really hard on yourself, and and it just
trying too hard.
Trying too hard, yes, and looking for that one thing. So it was really interesting watching your journey. I remember one of the first things you were saying was that you while we were working together, you did begin socializing more and began to realize the importance of socializing, which then really helped you moving forward.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
that also helped you start seeing, because you used to have a lot more pain at work, didn't you? So that again, you've seen the difference.
Yeah, and then a lot of times too, the pain got brought on by social situations. It was terrible. I mean, I completely forgot about that as well. I remember there were times I would go out and it would just get brought on being around people, and I didn't want to be around people.
Yeah,
definitely.
So what did you do then? Everybody would be wanting to know, what did you do to start helping yourself with that? I know we worked through some of this.
Again, it was a process with me. If you remember, even after we finished our sessions, I think
Sorry, just ignore my phone.
Oh, sure.
Carry on. Forgot to unplug
I think I saw the hypnotherapist.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I did that, and I think it did bring some benefit, and I think at a certain point, I just started living my life again. I said, I have a choice. I can either stay gripped in fear and anxiety, or I can just let this go. And there were a few things that definitely helped a lot. The journaling definitely really helped. Acknowledging emotions, letting them out. The visualization also really, really helped. The switching statements that you taught me over time, just constantly drilling them into the subconscious. Those all really helped. And ultimately, it was just acknowledging that there's some underlying cause behind all of this, not trying to cling to it or run away from it, just letting it be. And I just gradually got back into it. I mean, I stopped heavy exercise for, probably like 8 or 9 months, and I just started doing it again. And I remember feeling really anxious getting back into it. And just over time, just applying those methods. And of course, my wife was incredibly supportive through
Yes,
all of it. And at some point, it just, yeah, I gradually started getting better. It was like
absolutely.
one hurdle at a time,
Mm.
one small hurdle at a time. And I remember, you taught me about ending journaling on gratitude, which
Hmm.
also really helped, and focusing on positive accomplishments. So I remember I kept this list of all of the accomplishments, like, oh, today I started exercise again, or I was able to sit through an entire faculty meeting, without feeling the pain getting worse, just little things. And it
Yes,
just,
yes.
and then I started, at times I would reflect and look at the list and say, wow, I've really come a long way.
And I
Yeah.
think that's really important because so often people are too busy looking at the fact, focusing on the fact that they're not there yet, wherever there
Yeah.
is. They've not, even if they're 90% better, there's frustration that they're still not better
Yeah.
or recovered or whatever. Whereas actually, when you start looking at how far you've come, even the little things, because you were very much up and down, weren't you? There were times
Yeah.
you started playing basketball again, you went back to work, then sometimes you would have that blip. You did get on a flight, and then after that, yes, there was a blip again. But it was about learning, and I think that's the most important thing. Rather than seeing that as a detriment, to actually, as long as you learn from that, then
Yeah.
gradually it adds to your evidence sheet as well, beginning to really
Yep.
see.
That was it. That's what it was called, the evidence sheet. Yeah.
Yes. So that's great. And the other thing is that I think, and this is for many people, is that when you came, you were just so fearful and angry with the pain, with how
Yeah.
it was affecting your life. And that
Yep.
then just fuels it. You're frustrated, you're
Yeah.
not better yet, you're frustrated when it comes on, you're angry with it, you can't work, you can't do whatever.
Yeah.
And so then I remember you really were able to turn that around and start being really self-compassionate
Yeah.
toward your pain as well,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
not calling it pain.
Absolutely. And I just want to say, Georgie, I think one of the most important things for anyone is the frame of mind. I think it dictates everything. It
Yeah.
really does. And I mean, when you can really get in a place where you change the way you relate to the pain and perceive it, I think it'll completely change your world. Because I mean, I remember through this process, for example, like starting an exercise routine, and there was always that little bit of anxiety, like, oh, is it going to fuel it? Is it going to get worse after this? I don't even have these thoughts anymore. I did a run this evening before our session. I just don't even think that way anymore. My entire way of thinking is completely different. It's much more positive now, obviously. Much more positive and just aware, self-aware. I think that's one of the most crucial things, is just the way you think about things. I truly believe that, you can't understate the power of positive thinking, as cliche as it sounds. It really goes along
Positive
with it.
thinking, and yeah, absolutely, but also recognizing that on its own is like putting a plaster on. So the mindset is really important, and that positive thinking, as long as you are also emotionally aware and dealing with the stress in your life and any fears, worries. The combination of both, I think, is great. Just before we move on, I just want to say to people who are watching, if you've got any questions for Billy, please do, or for me, please do post them.
Sure.
And we will move on to answer some questions. I think one of the things that I remember with you, Billy, and that is coming out, I think, from this, is that the more you got into your life, got back to work, began exercising, began socializing with the support of your wife as well, gradually, the more you did that, the less emphasis there was on you and what you could do and what you couldn't do. And then gradually then, as you have more focus, something else to focus on, and something that drives you and you're enjoying, then the less focus is on you, therefore you're removing the fuel for the symptoms.
Yeah, definitely. I think what you pay attention to will grow, and what you take your attention away from will atrophy. And at some point, started focusing my energy on more positive things and just getting back into it. I mean, there's just so many there's so many things in life to just be grateful for and cherish. Just a good meal, a drink, time with loved ones, a sunset, furry friends, whatever it is that makes you happy. There's just too many things, really. You don't have to look that far.
And
And I
this
just
year, even more.
Yeah, especially
This year,
during
even
COVID
more
time.
reason to focus on those, definitely.
Yep, definitely.
Mm. I think one of the other things I remember when I was looking through your notes was sort of a turning point for you was actually that learning to let go, learning to recognize that the more you focused on something and went over and over it, the more challenging it was. And that learning to actually let go and choose things to engage with. If you're frustrated with something, or choose your arguments, as they say, then that
Yeah.
was another turning point.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that really helped me a lot too, because I just looking back now, I did so many things was mindfulness. It really helped a lot. I did a mindfulness course through the British Center of Excellence, and it was really valuable. A lot of these themes were there about letting go and living in the present. I think mindfulness is really one of the most important things anyone can do to apply to their lives, especially given the high stress, high stakes that
Absolutely.
all of us are faced with now. It is
Absolutely.
really beneficial. And me and my wife kind of joked because she's also very mindful. Um, and she just started a new job, very stressful, but she's doing great, and I'm just so proud of her. And we just kind of laugh at the way some of her colleagues interact because they're so not mindful. They're just, oh my God, oh my God, I'm so stressed about this. Oh, what am I supposed to do? And they're just gossiping. And if you literally just apply a few mindful techniques, you can overcome so many everyday little stresses that people have. So I would definitely
Absolutely.
recommend
And acknowledging, yes, acknowledging how they're feeling, but the more we talk about how awful things are, the more we're stirring things up. So actually learning to rationalize, learning to focus more on what can I do about this after I've acknowledged how I feel. Because that then helps with the growth mindset, doesn't it? Rather than just keeping us in that victim mode, or this is happening, I can't do anything about it. And that was very relevant this year. This is all this with COVID-19 is happening, it's happening. We can't do anything about a lot of it, but there are some things that we can do to improve our health and well-being and to ensure that we feel we have some control. And if we can focus on those, then that helps us become a bit more grounded and feel like we do have some control.
Definitely. And I remember you recommended the Headspace app. I used that for a couple of years.
Right,
I mean, I still meditate, but I've kind of changed the way that I meditate. And that's another thing too, is, I mean, meditation can come in so many different forms, like walking meditation, or just doing some deep breathing for 10 to 15 minutes. I just became much more flexible even with that too. Not that, it has to be Headspace or it has to be this specific type of meditation. For me, I think anything that just allows you to disconnect can be meditation. And I think you just have to find what works best for you.
Absolutely. And what works best, well, what worked best for you then is probably not what works best for you now, if you see what I mean. In that,
I
often if you're anxious.
Headspace. I'm not using it anymore. I think it's a great resource, but I just felt that I found my own new way of meditating, and I get just as much out of it.
Yes, absolutely. And I know there's a lot of people who are who struggle with meditation and who struggle to keep out of their thoughts. They feel that they shouldn't be thinking, etc. And they do start with guided meditation, and I think that's great. If that's whether that's meditation, like you said, while you're walking or doing something active, that can be a really good thing to do if you're struggling with lots of thoughts. But at some point, reaching that point, as you have, of being able to just meditate while you're walking in nature or sitting and doing some slow breathing, is a lovely way to chill a little bit more, to be still, because even with guided meditation, if you're following a visualization or a meditation, it's often it's still stuff coming into the brain, whereas actually it's nice to just be still. So moving on to be doing some meditation in silence, I think is really good.
Definitely.
So the question I've got while we're waiting, please do post questions. If you've got any questions for Billy, do ask. But the question I was wondering about now is that when I was looking at your notes, you tick, as I said earlier, all the boxes, as I do with the TMS personality traits. And I know personally that they were causing me a lot of stress, self-induced stress, my personality traits in the early days. Not the early days, up until, well, probably just before I came across this work, because I was doing some personal development work anyway. And now I'm aware of it, I'm more able to actually deal with the stress before it actually causing me. So you now with your personality, you've still got your personality. How do you feel that you deal with things in your life now, despite that?
Again, I'm going to relate so much of this back to just being mindful instead of whenever something very stressful or negative arises. I just feel like I relate to it much differently now.
Right.
Acknowledging it first, and rationalizing it and just letting it go. And again, gratitude, I think, has just gone so far with me, and I think it has the potential with a lot of people to go incredibly far. At a certain point through all this journey, I just started waking up so much more to all of the things to be grateful for. And when I was in that place, I overlooked them. And it's hard to be grateful when you're struggling with, a chronic pain issue. But I think those two really, really help me, face difficult, adverse things now.
Right. And it's getting out of the habit, isn't it, of, like you said, waking up in the morning and immediately going into anxiety or focusing on your pain, rather than waking up in the morning and then focusing on something you feel grateful for. It's a habit. It's it's something that, as you said earlier about the affirmations and things, it is about repeatedly doing something until it feels like you can.
Yeah. I think another thing too is just having a sense of humor about things. I mean, anytime I watch, like painkiller relief commercials, I just laugh. Literally, like there was one on earlier, blah 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 painkiller can help with back pain, and I'm just like, all that's just all TMS. Nothing fancy there. It's just hilarious, really, if you think about it. It's really funny. More than, I mean, if you think about it, it's hilarious. You wake up one morning and your neck is, or your back, because the night before you had an argument with your spouse or whatever. It's just hilarious to me.
But we're just not aware of it at the time.
Yeah, and you have to have fun with it.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a game.
Yeah, and that's the important thing, isn't it? To actually, and that, for example, when we talk about reframe, actually, the more if you visualize yourself playing, let's say playing basketball, and you're seriously imagining yourself lifting your arms and putting that ball in the hoop and whatever, if you're physically trying to visualize it, which can be very hard if you're trying to, it can be much harder than actually if you bring some fun and laughter in it, and actually you imagine you're playing basketball, but you're focusing on maybe, just quickly trying to throw the ball at a friend to, confuse him, or you're bumping into people, because I know basketball can be really physical, and you're messing about and having fun. That
despite what all the footy players say. I know the way people in the UK feel about basketball, but it actually is a very physical game.
Oh boy, I remember watching my niece playing basketball. Oh gosh, it was probably about 15 years ago, and I was shocked. I was really shocked, and I ended up actually being the physio at the match to one of the people on her team who'd really hurt herself. And it was really interesting, because I just thought it was a bit like netball until I'd seen that. It's very physical.
Yeah, I've heard that one before. Oh, that's just netball. I've heard that before.
Yes. So we have a question here then for you, Billy. So many clients I see struggle with getting back to exercise and overcoming the anxiety that it will hurt. What tips would you give them? And in the meantime, other people start thinking about any other questions that you've got.
Getting back into the Nike slogan says, just do it. There's gonna be fear. There's no doubt. There's gonna be fear. There's gonna be anxiety. But and take it in baby steps. Whatever your goals are, whenever you're going to get back into it. I mean, I'm doing very intense hit high intensity interval training right now. I'm doing weight training again. But when I started, I was not doing what I am doing now. And it was gradual, just baby steps. Get back into it, and journal, acknowledge the small victory. You really got to acknowledge those small victories. Today I did 20 push-ups or press ups, as you guys call them, and then just keep chart. Give yourself a nice pat on the back. A nice treat, whatever it is. Use that positive reinforcement, and then just keep at it. Honestly, keep at it, and fake it till you make it. Really, I love that one. You're going to be anxious, you're going to be scared, but use those positive affirmations, because at some point you're going to start believing yourself, whether or not you believe it personally. It'll get drilled into the subconscious the more you use positive affirmations, switching statements, and just using that. The visualization too, it really helps a lot. Visualize yourself, with pushing the weights over your head. All of it just really, really helps a lot.
Great, thank you. So, I mean, the only thing I would add to that is, the acknowledge the fears, acknowledge that you are scared, but then rationalize them, and then use that visualization to imagine yourself doing it with fun and with ease, enjoying it, and then, like you say, reinforcing that afterwards, the little wins that you've had. While also, as you also said, doing things little by little and gradually. You don't have to suddenly go run a marathon. Nobody could. But doing it bit by bit, but also repeatedly. So if somebody actually went and did some exercise, had some pain, and then left it another month before they tried again, that's reinforcing that the pain was due to the activity rather than fear about the activity.
Yeah, you definitely have to stick to it.
Yeah. Okay, so we have another question. Lucinda says, what tips do you have with social anxiety?
Oh, that's a good one, because I struggle. I went through a lot of social anxiety, and now it's just hilarious. Doctor, help me, my arm. I need to leave. There were a couple of times I was with a, in a large social setting, and I literally just had to walk out of the room because the arm started acting up, and it's just hilarious looking back now. I'm just laughing at myself and where I was. Again, you just have to go for it. Like, it's impossible that overnight all your anxieties are going to disappear. Anxiety is a normal thing. Everyone has it to some degree, but the more that you are able to take baby steps and just gradually get back into things like socializing, and just keep doing it over and over again. Like with anything, with practice, you're just going to get better at it. And I was just telling Georgie before our session, I can socially drink now. I stopped drinking for 6 years. And I thought that I wouldn't be able to ever drink again because I struggled with binge drinking. And I thought that I was going through what they call protracted alcohol withdrawal. But I think looking back now, I don't think I was truly going through that. I think a lot of it was just anxiety, very intense anxiety after quitting drinking. So you don't have to necessarily believe to all of the science and literature. I mean, be smart. If you don't think drinking is for you, then, don't do it. But for me, I knew that I wasn't, an alcoholic. I knew that I was a binge drinker because I'd always been very healthy, and I just learned to find my limits, and I just kept at it, kept going into social situations, and at a certain point, it just, something clicked. Yeah.
So, and again, it's like exercising, isn't it? It's about expressing your fears about going into a social situation, acknowledging the fears, rationalizing them, and doing it little by little. And then also using mindfulness as well. If, like you say, whether it's anxiety or your pain came on, you used to walk out, whereas actually now, now with your understanding, you recognize that, and if you allowed yourself to be mindful, emotionally aware, allowing yourself to acknowledge how you felt, and just let it and self-soothe, then the chances are that pain wouldn't come on.
Yeah. And I did forget to mention, Georgie, the acknowledging is very important, because I would do that a lot. Usually I would journal the night before. If I knew there was some kind of big social event the next day, whatever, acknowledging it the night before, rationalizing it. Yes, that is also really, really crucial and important. And you can't set incredibly high expectations for yourself. Like there's going to be anxiety. It's going to be there. You can't expect that it's going to all go away. That's unrealistic. And a lot of it too is just being able to learn to relate to it better, and just kind of let it be. Just let it be. I mean, it's just anxiety. It's not going to kill you. It's whatever, you know. So many people have it. So you don't have to become so attached to, oh my God, anxiety. Don't become so attached to these terms, you know, depression, anxiety, whatever they are, because those terms can really get into you, you know, really get into your subconscious. I mean, they're just medical terms at the end of the day.
And especially when people start saying, I am anxious, I'm depressed. No, you feel anxious, you feel depressed. And again, it is a response within the body. It's a manifestation of unresolved stuff. So you start dealing with everything.
Definitely.
Then things can settle down. But yes, it's when you start owning it and believing that this is what you suffer from, it can be really challenging. And yet when you start recognizing that excitement has the same physiological changes in the body as anxiety, you can begin to turn that around, then that can help as well. And begin and saying to yourself, I'm just feeling excited. Yeah, I'm just feeling excited.
and that's you know, reframing it and looking at it in a different way.
Absolutely.
And another thing too is to look at these supposed hurdles or, you know, adverse circumstances as areas for growth. Absolutely. And that is part of changing the mentality as well, because ultimately all of it is an area, an opportunity to grow. Which
there's two more questions I want to. We'll come to the longer one later. This other one fits beautifully now. Louise says, did you have many setbacks, flares when recovering?
Yeah, of course.
And I just remember you were sort of like this so
definitely.
much. And she says, any key things dealing with this? I think we've already responded to this, but in brief, how would you answer that?
Well, yeah, of course there were setbacks, definitely. I mean, it was a process. There were setbacks, and you know, you have to just keep persevering through it. I don't really know what else to say. You just have to keep at it.
Well, learning from them. I think that was the key thing, wasn't it? And that's where working together helped you in that time to be able to look at, okay, yes, you've had that flare. Now what was going on in the lead up to it? Can you now make that connection? Because it helps them to connect. Yeah. And then she was saying any key thing, and then you can work on that, and that's then that growth opportunity next time.
Yeah. Well, I think another really great pearl, and this was for mindfulness, is no feeling lasts forever.
Absolutely.
You acknowledge, I mean, okay, this is a flare up. It's really bad. It's really awful, obviously. But it's not going to stay that way. And the way that you're feeling and relating to it won't stay. Nothing is permanent. Things are always changing. And I think gradually through my journey, that really helped me a lot too. Yes. And just, I don't know, it was a kind of a big epiphany for me when you realize that actually nothing stays the same. At a certain point, this is going to pass. You know?
Everything in nature changes all the time. And emotions surface, they hang around a bit, they go off again. Like you say, nothing's permanent. And that means that anything is not going to be permanent. And therefore, it's about learning from that.
Yep. And I just want to add, Georgie, just really quickly, you know, going through all this, I was convinced that I can never heal. I'm different, not me.
Of course.
I think that's all BS. I think anyone can heal. You just have to believe it. It's as simple as that. You just have to. And
you don't have to believe it at the beginning either, because you didn't believe it at the beginning. You know, I think it's more about actually just agree, okay, I've tried everything else, nothing else has worked. And what many people try and do is try and convince themselves, or they are researching to try and prove that their condition is stress-induced, MS, or whatever, rather than actually just thinking, okay, so let's see how we go, because the belief comes as you begin to gain the insights and as you begin to see the improvement. Learn from That there was something else I was just going to say then as well. Oh no, it went in one ear and out the other. Never mind, gone.
That's all right.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. If I can just feel it, you know how you have something that's just in the back of your mind.
Yeah, happens to the best of us. Not
yes,
a problem.
absolutely. No, it's gone. So, moving on to a question from Catherine. She says, "My question is about alcohol, and if this feels too personal, please feel free to not answer. But you have already talked of it anyway now. I've often wondered whether people who have a chronic condition use alcohol or other drugs to numb the pain symptoms. I'm sure this is particularly relevant during these COVID times, absolutely, and it's something that people can find difficult to talk about. Did you ever feel tempted to use alcohol to numb your pain? And well done for being able to drink socially, having gone through a period of over-consuming. Thanks for a great interview."
This is one thing I can say with 100% certainty. I never felt tempted. I think because I have a very strong, committed personality, it can cut both ways. And when I was in that bad place of TMS and chronic this, chronic that, because I am a very, obsessive compulsive person, it really fueled into that. But at the same time, when I made a commitment to stopping drinking, I saw it through. And even when the pain came on, I can't say that it ever crossed my mind, because again, it became habit for me. My abstinence, my 6 years of abstinence became a habit. And when a habit gets set, it's so much easier to see it through. So no, looking back now, I never felt tempted to numb. I was too anxious, to be honest with you, to start drinking again. Yeah, because when I stopped drinking, I started getting all these anxiety symptoms like fast heart rate and insomnia, this, that, dizziness. So I think that was also part of the reason too why I didn't want, the thought never crossed my mind to use alcohol as a coping mechanism. But then at a certain point too, I said, you know what, I don't want this to control my life. I want to be able to socially drink again. And I know, and I believe that I can, and it just took time. It did. It took time.
Great, thank you. I just want to point out, if anybody's got any more questions, please do ask away.
Sure.
Something I was going to say is, Catherine, yes, absolutely. There are people who use drink to soothe their symptoms. I'd also suggest that actually, you say anyway, Billy, that you began drinking when you were 16, which was when you'd moved from America to China. And that or was it? Yes, it was to China then, wasn't it? Now I'm getting confused.
Yeah.
And that you did say that as a teenager that was a difficult time, even if you were consciously thinking, yes, getting on with things and trying to fit in. But I would suggest that that big change at such a challenging time in anybody's life anyway would mean that the drinking was a way of, one, it could be of fitting in, but also of masking the emotional pain, so that you weren't aware of the emotional pain at that point.
I think there was definitely some both of those going on, masking and fitting in. Looking back now, absolutely.
And I know you said there had been family things going on anyway, so when you're moving excuse me, and then not moving country, and then starting out again as a young 16-year-old, it can be really challenging, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So while we're waiting to see if anybody's got any more questions, is there anything else what are you doing? What can you do now that you couldn't do before? I know you've told us some things, but what great insights do you feel you'd have?
Well, Georgie, I just want to say that I don't think there's anything anymore that I think I've conquered everything that I wasn't able to do during that period. It's just, looking back now, it's quite remarkable, because I couldn't travel. It was really bad. I mean, I couldn't travel. I couldn't get on a plane. Going to work was a struggle every single day. I stopped exercising. I just completely withdrew. And now there's nothing I can't do. I mean, my wife and I, we travel now. I love it. I love traveling. I love exercising. I got back into competitive basketball. Again, COVID is the only thing that stopped it.
Despite the fact that you've still got a tear in your supraspinatus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all those medical terms, whatever.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think a lot of people have the tears. Any X-ray of
Yeah.
a normal person would reveal all that.
Yeah.
What else can I say? Fake it till you make it. I love that one. You just have to. You got to keep at it. You really have to just keep going at it.
So you develop these neural pathways.
Yeah, and I think the journaling again really helped, and just find something that works for you. I think for each person, we're all unique individuals, and we all have to find our own paths and the things that resonate with us.
Great, sure. Thank you. Okay, so another question from Lucinda. Can you talk about your emotional awareness and not judging any of your emotions? There's another question as well, but if we'll just ask that one for now.
And not judging emotions.
Your emotional awareness and not judging any of your emotions.
Okay, this is an interesting one. I think I'm definitely better at it. I can't say that I am 100% without judgment. But again, now compared to where I was, I definitely am much more mindful when approaching emotion and acknowledging this is anger, this is fear, this is anxiety, whatever the emotion is. Acknowledge it, rationalize it, and then just let it go. And it's just an ongoing process, to completely not have any judgment. It just takes time. And I think the pursuit of it is worthwhile. I don't think it's something that can ever fully be mastered. Maybe some people would disagree, but to not have any judgment, it just takes time.
That would be a long journey for somebody to reach the point where they've really overcome all their childhood learnings of judgments that they've learned through their own families and cultures and everything. But being aware of it, it's that mindfulness again, isn't it? Being aware of it and then accepting it. Even if you're initially judging something, it's then that awareness so you can then deal with it. So Definitely. The next question is also, did you have childhood emotions you needed to process and then let go
of? That's an interesting one too. I think so. Again, going back to kind of the beginning of our meeting, I think it was a culmination of a lot of different things for me, both present stresses and past childhood emotions. When I was 18, I found out my biological, or my dad isn't my biological father, and I think that was underlyingly that fueled a lot of this, whether I definitely didn't acknowledge it at the time. There was some underlying childhood emotions, that played into all this. And it just got to a point of you just acknowledge it and then you just get on. Don't become so attached to it. I mean, who doesn't have underlying childhood issues? It's just such a normal thing. And that's another thing too, is just not blowing it out of proportion. Like, it's just so common. So many people have childhood traumas to varying degrees, and just coming back to the gratitude, really just always coming back to the gratitude, especially people in the Western world, in the UK and America. Because I'm living in a third world country right now, and you see the enormous difference in the standard of living in a country like this compared to in the UK and the US. And I just think that people, especially in Western countries, have so much to be grateful for.
Absolutely. Lovely. Okay, thank you. Where are we at now? Oh yeah, so Catherine says, thank you for being open to answering her question. And she appreciates your thoughtful and honest reply.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, I think that's it as far as all the questions, unless anybody's got any final questions to answer. But I think, yes, going back to childhood, many people when they initially come across this approach, and they hear about childhood trauma, they feel that, well, no, that's not me. I had a happy childhood. And it's wonderful when that's the case. But the fact is that we are who we are because of our experiences in life. And we all are brought up to conform to family expectations, cultural expectations, religious expectations. And all of these do have an impact on us. And so
I think a lot of times we're just not aware too.
Absolutely. And I think it would be helpful then just to become aware, even just to be aware of that and why we are who we are, because then we can start understanding why we react to certain things. And then in the moment, like you say, mindfully, in the moment, dealing with that trigger in that moment, whether it is just triggering a reaction in you because of judgment or an emotion that's linked to a similar thing that happened in the past, or personality trait that's causing us to feel some stress. It's once we understand this better, we can then become more able to be allowing of it, let go and move on.
Definitely.
Not always easy though. Okay.
No, it isn't.
No, quite. Okay, I think we will leave it at that then. Thank you so much, Billy.
Sure.
I really
I'm gonna have a glass of wine to celebrate.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah.
I might not in the middle of the day for us here.
Life is short. You should enjoy it, you know. Yeah.
Absolutely. And look at the good things that are occurring when there's so much else going on at the moment.
Definitely.
So, fabulous. Thank you very much,
and
Billy.
Everyone who's still struggling with all of this, you're going to be just fine. Don't take it so seriously. Enjoy, just enjoy life. I know it's it's easier said than done. I know. But honestly, it's not the end of the world. You'll make it through. You don't have to believe all the negativity in your head. It is very possible with persistence, with time, with patience. Many, many things are possible.
Absolutely. And you are a point, what's the word? Proof in point, or whatever the term is. Point in case, that'll do. Yes, and I think you are a shining light with all this, Billy, because I know how you'd have felt if I'd said, oh, just let go. It's, it's easy this at that time, because it is hard, as you know, because you've gone through it. But now to see you having gone through that and then being able to say this is fantastic. And I know that it's going to be really supportive for everybody. And everybody's saying thank you very much and inspiring them to do, etc. Yeah,
thank you so much for having me, and good luck, everyone, honestly. Yeah, good luck to everyone. You're going to be fine. You're going to be fine.
Lovely. Right, thanks for listening, everybody.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks, Billy. All the best. Bye.
You too. All the best. Bye.